Good morning again, or whenever you're watching this. Hope all is well. So for this video, I wanted to talk about the mark. So we've been talking about the Antichrist and just going through that. So for this video, I actually wanted to read scriptures on the mark of Yahuah. I thought before we jump into scriptures about the mark, the mark of the beast. I think a lot of times we talk about the mark of the beast, but I also think that it's important to know that Yahuah has a mark, right? So, and actually, once I read about the scriptures that dealt with Yahuah's mark, it made more sense to me why the Antichrist has a mark. Because one, we know that he likes to copy Yahuah. He's not original, so he likes to copy Yahuah. And then also, he wants to mark you. He wants to get a chance to mark you so that you can't receive the mark of Yahuah, right? So that he wants to put his mark on you first and get your worship. Okay, but the first things first is I thought that we would just read some scriptures about the mark of Yahuah. So the first one comes out of Exodus chapter 13, verses 8. Let me see, actually, 8 through 9. So this chapter is dealing with the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the law of the firstborn. So we'll just start there. So we'll say, let me see. Okay, so verse 8. And you shall tell your sons, and you shall tell your son in that day, saying, this is done because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. So basically they're saying, make sure you tell your children about, the Passover and how he delivered us out of the Egyptians, coming out of Egypt, the importance of that. And it says, verse 9, it shall be as a sign to you on your hand and as a memorial between your eyes, that the Lord's law may be in your mouth. For with a strong hand, the Lord has brought you out of Egypt. So I thought that was interesting when I read that because we talk about the mark of the beast being, on our forehead and in our hand. But this is saying that, basically keeping the past. So first of all, for those of you that that don't think that, keeping Passover is important, I highly recommend that you read Exodus chapter 11 through 13, just so you can know the importance of the Passover. But nonetheless, this is saying that it will be a sign, right? So this is a sign unto the Lord, and the sign will be as a memorial between our eyes. We know that's here, and then a law in our mouth. For a strong hand, the Lord has brought us out of Egypt. So I thought that was interesting. And then if we come down to, it's still in Exodus chapter 13, 15, and 16. So verse 15 says, and it came to pass when Pharaoh was stubborn about letting us go, that the Lord, or Yahuah, killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beasts. Therefore, I sacrifice to the Lord all males that open the womb, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. So pause. If you're an Israelite man and you are the first son or the son that opens your mother's womb, you have a special purpose. I just thought I would say that. You have a very special purpose. We know Yahuah has scriptures where he talks about the firstborn, like the gift of being the firstborn, right? Being the firstborn son that opens your mother's womb. So I just thought I would say that. But okay, so verse 16, it shall be as a sign on your hand and as frontlets between your eyes, for by strength of the hand of the Lord brought us out of Egypt. So once again, we're talking about this marking, right? This marking that's a sign of the Lord, of one, how he protected us, how he brought us out of Egypt. And it talks about this sign being, what does it say? As the frontlets between our eyes, which is like here, and then a sign on our hand. So it's this theme of being a sign on our head and on our hand, right? So I just thought I would point that out. But that's in Exodus chapter 13. The next one is coming out of Deuteronomy. So it's Deuteronomy chapter 6, 7 through 8. Okay. So it says, actually, I'm going to start at 4. So Deuteronomy chapter 4, I'm going to start. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. So that's our command. You shall teach them diligently. These are the commandments. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. So we're called to love Yah with our whole heart, mind, and strength. We're called to teach these ways and commandments to our children. Verse 8. You shall bind them as you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. I'll just go to verse 9. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. So again, it's just this theme that the commandments of the Lord, the commandments of Yahuah, they are a mark, right? They're a mark on our head and on our hand. So Satan wants to come and mark us, but Yahuah tells us that we have a mark, right? Like he wants to mark us with his commandments, with his protection. But again, it's just this theme of Yahuah telling us that we are to do things as a sign and as a mark on the frontlet between our eyes, which is like really here, like our forehead, and then on our hand. So that wanted to point that out. So the next one comes out of, so we were actually reading out of the Revelation of Elijah. So the Revelation. So we were just doing our readings out of that. So I thought I would come back and talk about the mark, or the mark of Yahuah. So this is the Revelation of Elijah, verse 1, 8 through 11. Okay. So verse 8. Remember that he has prepared thrones and crowns for you in heaven, saying, everyone who will obey me will receive thrones and crowns among those who are mine, the Lord said. I will write my name on their forehead, and I will seal their right hand, and they will not hunger or thirst. Neither will the son of lawlessness prevail over them, nor will the thrones hinder them, but they will walk with the messengers up to my city. So that's again a promise of how, should we live in righteousness, Yahuah will seal us. He'll seal us with his mark, not Satan's mark, his mark. And his mark will protect us from the lawless one, and it'll protect us in the days to come. So that's Revelation of Elijah. What did I read? Chapter 1, verses 8 through 10 or 11. Okay, the next one comes out of Revelation of Elijah. And I shared this, I think, when I read chapter 5, but I thought I would do it again. So this is Revelation of Elijah, chapter 5, verse 4. And it says, now those on whose forehead the name of Yahusha is written, and on whose hand is the seal, both the small and the great will be taken up on their wings and lifted up before his wrath. So again, this is just more confirmation that there is an actual mark and an actual seal of God, and it will protect us it will protect us from the wrath to come to the earth. So the last one will come out of Revelation chapter 20. So one second, let me go there. So Revelation chapter 20. This is verse 4. Okay. So Revelation chapter 20, verse 4. And I saw the thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was committed to them. Then I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for their witness to Yahusha and for the word of Yah, who had not worshipped the beast or his image, and had not received his mark on their foreheads or on their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. So again, these are people who did not receive the mark of the beast. They didn't do it. So these are people, that we know these are the martyrs. This is what people typically talk about when they talk about the mark of the beast, the ones that don't receive it, and they die for their witness, and then they'll live and reign with Christ. So these are just a few scriptures. I actually think I'm just going to stop here, and I think I'll come back and do another video, because I don't want to run out of time, on just the scriptures that we typically know about the mark of the beast, right? These are your standard scriptures that we know, the ones from Revelations, but I'll come back and read those. But I thought that I would share this so that we also understand, like I said, I think a lot of times prior to me reading the Bible, I heard a lot about the mark of the beast, right? We talk about the Antichrist, we talk about the mark of the beast. But prior to me reading the Bible for myself, I had never really heard as much about the physical mark of Yahuah, the importance of how he will mark us. Like the same way that Satan, that's what it is, right? That's what it is. Satan wants to come and mark you so that you can't be marked for Yahuah, right? When Christ comes and he marks, I think that's behind the whole thing. When it says those that are marked can't receive it. Why? Because you already have a mark there, right? You already have a mark. So Christ wants to come and mark his people. But if you already have a mark, if you took the mark of Satan, you already have it. You already chose. And I think that's a huge reason as to why, because I did wonder that. I sometimes I wondered why, even though people took the mark, why can't they be redeemed? But now I just think it's just because you chose. Like if I'm saying the people that do that, they chose. When Yahusha comes, that space is already filled. It's already filled with Satan's mark. So the goal of Satan, again, I stress this throughout the series because I think that it's important, again, is to fill us with lies about a lot of things about the Bible, just in general, to lead us on deception, to lead us to the major deception, to prep us to receive his mark. That way, when Christ comes, Christ will come to mark his people. But if he shows up and you're already marked, then you already made your choice. He can't mark you because you already have the mark of Satan. Does that make sense? So I'm just sharing that's something that I realized when I started reading the Bible for myself. Prior to that, we talked a lot about the mark of the beast. But when I started reading the Bible, I saw how much Yahuah talks about his own mark. He has his own mark. These scriptures that deal with how he says, I will put a mark on you, between the frontlets of your eyes. Well, that's a forehead, right? And I will put a seal on your hand. That's a hand, right? So the frontlet between our eyes and the seal on our hand. So the Bible also talks about the mark of Yahuah. So we want to strive to receive the mark of Yahuah by keeping his commandments, by considering his ways and have it be a mark of protection. Okay, I think that's it. This is hopefully just a quick one, but hopefully you can study these scriptures on your own out of Exodus, Deuteronomy, Revelation of Elijah, and the book of Revelation. And yeah, I hope that this helped. And I'm going to come back and talk about the mark of the beast. Okay, bye guys.